Hey, good morning. It is April 16th, 2022, 8:09 a.m. my time, and my name is Patrick Lovell. And I am here to proclaim to you and to everyone I can penetrate that we, through me, have to discover the solution to corruption, which I actually have a 13-year head start on. And I have the answers that the entirety of this system doesn't want you to understand, although we see elements of it every day play out in our world, like on hyperdrive. I mean, it reminds me of that time in Star Wars, of course, when you know the Millennium Falcon just boosters into hyperdrive and hyperspace, and that's what it feels like to be bombarded by corruption. So, what are we looking at, really? I'm speaking mostly to people of the working class, or really, this is anybody who's not part of the 0.001%. What I need you to understand is we are completely corrupt. We have been hijacked to high heaven. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of it, okay? Just recently, okay? Clarence Thomas, who sits on the Supreme Court, had acted illegally in his wife Jenny Thomas's participation with the Koch brothers to overturn the election. The corruption is insane, playing out in front of our eyes every moment of every day, from Mark Meadows to all of the things that have been revealed with regards to the insurrection and, of course, the big lie. But what I need you to understand about Trump, for all of you Trump supporters looking for an alternative that I'm going to get to in a moment, that is not your alternative. If you're a working class person trying to build for your family, to provide for your family at a time period after COVID where now suddenly we're experiencing incredible inflation, where the cost of goods, from gas to everything at the grocery store to your rent, or to actually you trying to purchase a home, which is out of reach for most, that this is all a direct causation of what it is that I've been trying to unfold upon you for some time, but you've got to get your head around it. We do not have a system of by and for the people. We do not have a system of justice where no man is above the law. And it reaches the highest levels of the Supreme Court. Case in point, what I just said, Clarence Thomas and his involvement with his wife, Jenny Thomas, who of course was getting paid to consult for the Koch brothers, one of the largest fortunes in the world, that were paying for a variety of things that led to things that it appears that Clarence Thomas has been ruling on for a long time. But that is direct corruption, first and foremost. And he's at the highest court of the land. Now, you've got to understand this. Over the course of the last several weeks, I have been observing in real time a courageous attorney by the name of Bruce Jacobs in Miami, who has put on display one of the most amazing examples of courage that I think we have witnessed in our lifetimes. He's calling out the corruption in the courts to the judge's face based on documentation fraud used by servicers and servicers and foreclosure mills to basically steal houses. And they have done that now for 14 years, probably more than that I'm aware of, but at least since it's like 13 years from the September 2008 crisis that led to the foreclosure crisis that buried everybody. And it's literally, when you see this, it's like two guys from a fraternity hanging out with a guy who was, a senior member that's on some senior council that was a part of their fraternity, and they look at each other, and they do the nod and wink, and it's like, okay, we're going to get out of this, right? And the two guys were there to, being accused of roofing somebody that they raped. I mean, and the victim has no chance. It's a runaway train wreck, top to bottom. It's insanity. If you don't have any justice in this country, what's the point of anything? Really? Well, because in history, literally, you have the gulags in Russia. You have whatever form of police state that could pile drive the citizenry, or I would just say the people of those countries into prison. And if you didn't play along to go along, then you wind up in prison or dead. And we're on a fast train wreck to that situation if we don't get a hold of this. But it's more than that for me personally, because, just the betrayal and the notion of professionals that can sit on the bench literally for an entire career in a safe zone because they have been deemed and propped up by our society as those that can rule, right? That have the judgment, that have the wisdom, that have the blind justice, that are going to rule fairly in every proceeding. That's not happening in the foreclosure cases particularly, but of course we could talk about all sorts of other elements of the judicial system that I'm not even aware of. But I can tell you that literally millions upon millions of people have their houses stolen, and it's that simple. How did they have their houses stolen? Well, they were set up in the largest criminal enterprise in the history of the world. And what is it? It's in the con. www.thecon.tv. If you understand the details, then you can become actually effective at joining us in creating a massive movement to purge corruption. We've got to get to what I'm going to refer to as the clean New Deal, because the clean New Deal is going to have to purge corruption. That's got to be the central point of everything because of this. So you just heard me talk about Clarence Thomas, a Supreme Court justice guilty of criminality based on what his wife was doing with the Koch brothers and the insurrection. It's insane. But right now we have got a tidal wave of people on the blue side looking at what's going on with the lack of the Department of Justice's ambition to go after Donald Trump for all of the things that appear to be incredibly you can't ignore them. That they're just so boldly straight in your face criminality that you got to ask yourself, why wouldn't the Justice Department go after him? It's insanity, but I'll tell you why. Okay, this is just me speculating based on what I know. But you can't be outraged about Donald Trump and all of these things if you're not outraged about the Obama administration and what they didn't do to Wall Street. And again, if you go to www.thecon.tv, you'll understand what I'm saying. So the Supreme Court justice I just indicated, or I just exemplified as having participated in criminality, which is insanity. It just the stain it does upon the court is just beyond comprehension. And the same could be said of, quite frankly, the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve chairman, the chair of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, was involved with insider trading with the president of the Dallas Federal Reserve, Robert Kaplan, based on stuff that happened in 2019. Okay? And he might have been involved. That's what we know about, right? So you've got the head of the Federal Reserve that's involved with corruption, the head of the Supreme Court that's involved with corruption. And if you think those two are an amalgamation or some strange kind of outlier, they're not. It's the way the system works. And so my point to all of you is that if you're struggling, if you're trying to cope with this inflation and you never seem to be able to get ahead, and we went from the 2008 great financial crisis to an economy that was stagnant, to COVID, and then ultimately this, and meanwhile you see the fluctuations where the billionaires got insanely rich during COVID. Well, there's a reason they were able to do that. Half of it is Fed policy, half of it is tax policy, and of course they own the show. Nobody elected BlackRock to be, the asset manager of the Federal Reserve on behalf of the American people. No, that was banks run by the banks that put that guy in charge to basically do the inside machine that calibrates towards the rich. All this has been, and I'm trying to tell you right now, and I'm talking about the ultra rich, okay? And I don't, do I disregard people who are successful? No, of course not. I know the difference between a brain surgeon and a pimp. I know the difference between a rocket scientist and a drug dealer. Do you? Literally, what we're doing is we're putting up people that have the same sort of model and techniques as the two bad guys that I just mentioned in there to prop up the entire system through complicated financial engineering and hedge funds and private equity and asset managers and all of these guys that are just literally stealing money. They're skimming money from the Federal Reserve. This is cocaine for the rich. They are above the law, they get free money, and you are working your ass off for nothing. And they pile drive you, and if you make a mistake, you go to jail. But if they make a mistake where the intent was to steal trillions, they get to steal trillions more. And then they get to pay complicit bastards that run for office. We've got to generate a mass movement to purge corruption. The hashtags are Exodus, hashtag the resurrection, hashtag truth is marching, hashtag failure is not an option. Please join us. Please go to my YouTube channel and like and subscribe. It's Patrick Lovell, Truth Bombs the Con. Please send me messages. I'm about to make an announcement soon of a national platform that could be a potential political response to be able to bring us all together under the banners of some of these things that I've been laying out to you for 2 months. Please tell every single person you know who ever had gone through the foreclosure crisis, anyone you know, that they got set up, that they failed, that they need to see the con, that there's a mass movement underway to try to purge corruption in the courts. And for all of you in the courts right now, please join us. Because like I said, we're supporting the likes of Bruce Jacobs in Miami right now to be able to bring this to light in a way that the mainstream media will never touch. Nobody wants to touch this stuff, and I will just say this as a final comment. Look, everybody wants to talk about Trump. Do you know that the Russians put $100 billion into our financial system? It's all there. It's their oligarchs. They've basically been taking out money, putting it into Western societies, and our guys, do that. That's our form of capitalism through the hedge funds and the private equity and all the rest of it. They're in on it. So if you want to go against Putin and his invasion of Ukraine, a good place to start is to purge corruption. That's part of it, and that could lead to World War III. But our guys aren't better. You can't be against Trump, and you can't support Trump if you're against corruption. That's an impossibility. But the same has to be said if you can't support the 4 decades of the Wall Street meritocracy, Ivy League, deep state that created the likes of Barack Obama. You cannot support them either, because they're the ones that created the massive, massive cover-up that led to what Trump is. That's all I've got to say. I hope you'll join us. Onwards and upwards.